take any questions that you guys have for me.
Yep. What's your favorite episode?
My favorite episode, I think right now, it's either the two-parter Go God Go from the last one, because it was so good on religious topics and stuff like that. That's one of my favorite things to talk about. So I can put it this way: the one that makes political commentary, I think clearly is or like so even religious commentary, it's Go God Go. For episodes that really don't kind of have any moral relevance or anything like that, it's got to be the Warcraft episode from the beginning of the season where they all turned into big flat zit-faced slobs by playing way too much World of Warcraft.
What's your favorite character and why?
Wow, that's tough. Man, that's tough. I guess I'm tempted to say Kyle, not only because we share a name, but also because he seems to be the one that gets the moral lessons most often, and he seems to be more kind of just straightforward, and just kind of tells it like it is a lot of times. Also for his, he really stands up to Cartman with all the anti-Semitism that Cartman throws at him. He usually takes it pretty well. So he's probably I might have to think about that a little bit more. There might be some kind of side character that I like the best. I always like Chef. I was really sad to see Chef go too. So.
Was there any point, especially after you wrote the article for the book, was there any point at which you personally got offended by some views that you held deeply, and then you were like, oh crap, I can't believe I just offended them? Damn you, Matt and Trey.
Right, so if you didn't hear it, the question was, does South Park, like after I wrote the article for the book or something like that, did South Park ever do anything that I found so offensive that like I regretted promoting the show or something like that? I don't think so. I have seen, I'll tell you the truth, when the first time that I saw Christopher Reeve crack open a fetus and suck it out, that was pretty offensive to me. But I understood the point they were making, right? In that particular instance, they were actually showing that, people who promote stem cell research, very literally, whether it's good or bad is debatable, but are very literally saying that what we're doing is exchanging fetuses for medical developments, right? And we got to ascertain whether that's really what we're supposed to be doing or not. But I found that pretty offensive. Other things that they've done, they've knocked on Christianity pretty hard and stuff like that. But really and truly, I've never regretted defending them, because even if they pick on beliefs that I hold dear, since they pick on everybody else, I don't feel kicked out, as it were. So I never feel bad for that. And I really do take Mill seriously, where I say, even if they're saying something that I think is false, I think they have the right to do that, and I'm glad that they do have the right to do that, and I will actually defend their right to do that. And now I'll use the opportunity that they provide me by saying what I think is false to defend what I think is true, and be thankful that they gave me that opportunity. So I do take Mill seriously in that way. So I guess, no, I've never really regretted. They've never, and I don't think that'll change. I don't think whatever they do will never be bad enough, as it were, to do that. Maybe I'll regret saying that, but...
Definitely with one of the newer episodes where Pee Wee hockey players played against the Detroit Red Wings. Is there a moral lesson in that? Is at the end of it, I just kind of wanted to
not at all.
More?
I hated that episode. For those of you who don't know, he's talking about the very last episode, this last season, which was called Stanley's Cup, right? And it was this Pee Wee hockey league that ended up playing against the Red Wings. They just got slaughtered, and there was this weird kind of emotional moment at the end or whatever. I didn't think it was funny. Steve Irwin showed up in that episode too. I didn't think that was funny.
Horrible.
It was horrible. It was just a really bad episode. So, one thing to keep in mind is Matt and Trey, in so many ways, really are slackers. They do a lot of their episodes at the last minute and that kind of stuff, and for they can produce an episode like 3 days. That's why they can have whenever Saddam Hussein was dug out of his hiding hole after we invaded Iraq and we found him, and he came out and he had that beard. That week, whenever the South Park episode aired, that week that they discovered him, Saddam Hussein was dictator of Canada, like in The Wizard of Oz, and they pulled back the curtain, and it was that picture of Saddam Hussein they lifted from the news like a day and a half ago, and he was Saddam Hussein running Canada. because they do the episode so quickly, they do it all with computers, they can be that topical where they literally pull stuff right out of the news and put it on the show that night. But as a result, they sometimes do some shows that are kind of shoddy because they don't put very much, they don't put 3 days into it and there's not much of a plot. So every now and again you hit that, hit those kind of episodes and they're not that good. But not very often. Usually they're pretty good.
Do you think Matt Che ever realized the power that they had and maybe use that to stand up on a soapbox at all, or do they usually stay pretty responsible?
They certainly know. I don't know if they actually know what kind of power they have. I'm not sure I know what kind of power they have. But they certainly are aware of the fact that they are preaching messages. In the Cartoon Wars episode, they actually made fun of themselves because they had characters in the show that were making fun of Family Guy. The whole thing was an analogy with Family Guy is, the characters in the show were making fun of Family Guy, and they were saying things like, Family Guy has gotten so preachy and, and so concerned with displaying messages, they don't even know how to be funny anymore. All they know how to do is preach, right? And so they're at least aware that they're doing that kind of thing. Of course, they don't think it's bad to do that kind of thing. But they're certainly, but I know, it'd be interesting to see how many people have changed political views or anything like that because of South Park. But they very clearly are. Is Gerald here tonight? Gerald's not here. Gerald's in my South Park class. He dug me up an article about South Park libertarianism. And even though they don't identify themselves, if you ask them initially, they're like, I'm not sure what libertarianism is, so I don't know if I am one or not. But after you kind of describe it to them, they go, oh yeah, I guess that's what we are, right? So that's the kind of thing that at least they seem to shoot for sometimes. Which is not surprising given the kind of, Bill's a pretty good libertarian, so they kind of got that kind of jive going on.
So you've mentioned this class. How can you defend that?
Good question. The class is much like the book. The class uses South Park as a springboard to talk about philosophical issues. So, for instance, this week in the class, what we're doing is we watched the Fun with Veal episode. For those of you who don't know the Fun with Veal episode, the kids discover that veal is chained up baby cows with big giant baby eyes that make them look really cute. Now they all decide, we didn't know that veal was tied up baby cows. We're not going to eat veal anymore. This is awful. So they kidnap the veal, as it were. They kidnap the baby cows, take them back to Stan's room, and demand that the FDA change the name veal to torture baby cows, and demand that they all be taken to Mexico so the cows are never eaten. And clearly, and Stan decides to give up meat altogether. Right? He says, I'm not going to eat veal. I'm not eating any other kind of meat. I'm going to be a vegetarian. The other kids decide they're just going to quit veal. They're not going to give up on fried chicken and all that kind of stuff. Or beef jerky. That's when Cartman feeds the beef jerky to the baby cow. And so what happens is Stan, because he becomes a vegetarian, ends up breaking out in little sores. And it turns out that he's just turning into a giant female genitalia. Right? And the moral is that if you stop eating meat altogether, that's what you become. Right? So we watch that episode, and then we actually read 2 or 3 articles that are about vegetarianism, about the moral significance of vegetarianism, right? And if there could be a moral argument made for vegetarianism or one against, right? And so you actually see the philosophical arguments for the actual issues. Now, how can I show that in class? Well, what it comes down to is everyone enrolled in the class knows what's coming. I have them all sign a little waiver that says, this is the kind of things we're going to be watching. If I don't want to watch it, I have the freedom to leave. I always tell them when it's coming, so they don't have to watch it if they don't want to. They're great as an opinion or anything like that, so they can go there if they want to. Of course, everybody in the class is there because they like South Park, so everybody watches it, but so far I've avoided any kind of problems like that. But it's been a lot of fun. The class has just been great so far.